So here we are with Bruce Yocum, one of the former elders of the Servants of the Word, at the same time also a man of the first hour. So Bruce, thank you for your time. I understand you've just been to the Golden Jubilee in Rome of Charismatic Renewal, and it was just nice to hear why you even went. What was the occasion and what happened there? So if you could just tell us a little bit about it.
Yes, this is 50 years since what people typically count as the beginning of Catholic Charismatic Renewal, the weekend at the Ark and the Dove Retreat Center in Pittsburgh at Duquesne University. So it's been building for some time. The International Catholic Charismatic Renewal Services Office wanted to commemorate the event and wanted to mark it with some, well, actually there have been quite a few different events. There was one last February for a symbolic, I suppose, invited guests, 120, at the retreat center itself. But this was the big one, the one in Rome. And there's pretty remarkable enthusiastic support for it from Pope Francis, who was involved directly, especially on Saturday night, and the Vigil of Pentecost, and then on Sunday morning at the Mass for Pentecost itself. And Sunday evening was entirely for Charismatic Renewal. That was the express purpose of it in the Circus Maximus in Rome. Sunday was the Pentecost Mass, but then, of course, many of those present were people who had come for the Charismatic Renewal conference. And I wanted to participate in it because it's 50 years. It's a very significant event. I'm guessing that I won't be around for the next 50-year anniversary or even the 75-year anniversary, so I wanted to take advantage of that. A lot of the people that I have known from the very beginning were there, and it's always good to have contact, especially to take advantage now. I hate to say it, but at my time of life, a lot of the people that I've known, you don't know when you'll see them again. And it was quite remarkable that Father Peter Haken, a good friend, was there participating, very lively, very active, and a short while after, a few days after the event, he
passed away.
Went to the Lord. So there were many reasons for wanting to go to it, and I was delighted by the event.
For what I understand, it was sort of a conference with some parallel tracks and some sort of plenary things, or how did
Yes, there were some sessions that were for everybody there, but then there were, I think, 3 or 4. I didn't study the schedule that carefully, but there was a track for prayer groups. There was a track for ministries like healing ministries and so forth. There's a track for covenant communities. There was a track for new evangelization, a variety of things like that. But when it says a track, it usually meant one session somewhere during the course of the conference that was focused on that particular area.
And is my understanding correct that the Sword of the Spirit co-organized that track for communities?
Yes, the track for communities was a joint effort of the Catholic Fraternity of Covenant Communities and Fellowships, the European Network of Communities, and the Sword of the Spirit. So Jean Barbara was involved from the beginning in the organization of that track.
And you spoke as well at some point?
I spoke, it was an afternoon at John Lateran Basilica, it was on Thursday afternoon, and it was a very full program. I did not believe that they were going to be able to keep to the schedule, but they did a pretty good job. Paul Jordan was leading the music for the first part of it. It was a very full program, and then it concluded with the Mass. And for the Mass, some other group did the music, but Paul and friends led the music for the actual program part of it at the beginning.
And do you have a feeling for how many Sword of the Spirit people would have come, roughly?
No, I don't. we had on Wednesday evening at the hotel where many of us were staying, we had a big gathering for the Sword of the Spirit. It was very nice. Began with a reception, drinks and snacks and so on, actually quite nice. And then a prayer meeting after that. And the room was full. And I was a bit surprised because people were just arriving, and I expected the prayer meeting would be somewhat short and not very lively, but in fact it was a good hour long and very enthusiastic, very lively.
And the full room, you're talking 50 people, you're talking 150?
Oh, I don't know, I heard different estimates, but I would say at least 200,
Okay.
maybe 300, between 200 and 300 people. People from all around the world. It's delightful just to be able to walk around during the reception and see the people who come from every corner.
Yeah, lots of Lebanese, of course, from what I understand.
The Lebanese were the biggest delegation, I believe. And I went along with them because they were the first ones to get organized.
Oh, well, and you are an honorary Lebanese after.
Honorary Lebanese, but I thought if I hitch my wagon to theirs, they do all the organization for me, and they did.
Oh, very good. And so, of the various things, what sort of inspired you most, or what struck you most during the time?
We had there were a variety of very, very good events. The Wednesday evening with the Sword of Spirit people was delightful. It was really quite delightful. And we had a brief presentation by Jean Barbara. Excellent, really spiritually excellent, very good content. The next morning we had a somewhat impromptu meeting amongst some of the leaders from the three groups that were the three groups that were sponsoring that European network, the Catholic Fraternity and Sword of Spirit. That was a very good, an informal meeting, but quite good, and excellent relationships, and a real desire to continue, not doing anything organized together, but to continue meeting together and getting to know one another better. Of course, some of us have known one another for years and years and years. But that meeting was very helpful for me personally, because then that afternoon we had the community's event.
And you were speaking, yeah. Okay.
And it just felt much more at home.
Yeah.
With it. Actually, during that event, up on the altar, the little team of people that was running the event, it's remarkably good unity and good relationships as we worked together. So it was joyful.
So my understanding is sorry.
No, Friday or Saturday night, the evening, the vigil with the Pope, Pope Francis and Raniero Cantalamessa both spoke. Cantalamessa was excellent as always, but Pope Francis too was very simple, very clear, but his support for Charismatic Renewal, for being baptized in Spirit, his support for ecumenism is quite extraordinary. And it just came out. And I think anybody who watches the video of it and hears a good translation of it will be impressed by that. The Sunday Mass was good as well. But those events are, I mean, you're caught in a mass of people.
Yeah, large and
and so it's good, but it's not exactly pleasant.
And so my understanding is a number of the talks or sessions are online.
Many of them are, yes, many of them are available online and video, varying quality.
Yeah.
Actually, the video quality itself is pretty good for most of them, but there are problems with audio on some of the.
And if people had time to listen to one or two, is there something in particular that you would recommend?
I would recommend they listen to my talk.
Okay.
And I would recommend that they listen to the Saturday evening vigil, both Pope Francis and Cantalamessa. I think those are probably the key interventions. But then people can browse through. There's there's quite a list of the videos, and I think different people have different interests.
You spoke about what in your little session?
Well, I really spoke about, I wanted to point out there's very good spiritual reasons to recount the history of what God's done. We're always encouraged to do it. In the scripture, it's considered a form of worship and also something essential for passing on to future generations what God did. And then also just looking around to see the breadth of what's been happening in this renewal. It's extraordinary.
Now, sometimes, especially in the West, people say, well, the best days of Charismatic Renewal are over and so on. This was the 50th anniversary. Do you have any prediction, maybe not for the next 50 years, but even the next 10 or 20, where you think things will go or should go for Charismatic Renewal?
Yes. Yeah, I was asked that a lot at the conference itself, during the conference. And I said some things about it in my talk. I do think that Charismatic Renewal, just the church as a whole, we still are in for hard times. I don't think we've seen anything like the seriousness of the days of darkness that the Lord spoke about prophetically. But I also think we really are beginning to see, I mean, back at the beginning of Renewal, we always said that the future of Charismatic Renewal was to disappear as a movement, because it's an unusual movement. It's not, what it's about is being baptized in the Spirit. It's about this outpouring of the Spirit that God intends for the whole church, not just for some group of people in some movement. And so we always said that as a movement it should disappear, but being baptized in the Spirit should become, and charismatic gifts should become a normal part of the life of the church. And that is beginning to happen. It's remarkably, it is. I mean, Pope Francis did say in the past year to a meeting of priests that he would like to see people put on Life in the Spirit seminars, and he did speak about Life in the Spirit seminars, in every parish every year. It's very difficult to estimate the numbers of people involved, because in all of the major movements of renewal, there are many, many people baptized in the Spirit, but who are participating in San Egidio or in Chemin Neuf or in whatever a movement. They wouldn't necessarily consider themselves part of Charismatic Renewal. So I do think that the reality of baptism in the Spirit in the church is going to spread, and it's going to become more and more a leaven for the life of the church, whatever happens to the organized renewal.
Very good. Well, thanks for your time. Again, there's more online, and I think also I've heard you recommend before the book by Patty Mansfield Gallagher.
As by New Pentecost, the revised version of it. She has an introductory essay on the history of how renewal began that I highly recommend.
Great.
I think it should be required reading for everyone.
Excellent. Well, thanks for your time. Thank you.